Hey everybody, how's it going? Hopefully y'all are having a great day today. In today's video, I wanted to give you a bit of an inside look into my own personal journey of how I went from saving next to nothing per year to saving over $40,000 a year. Now the hope with this video is that you can draw some inspiration and understand that something like this doesn't happen overnight. This is an aggregation of years and years and years of small habit building, of lifestyle alterations, and ultimately, pay increases, obviously, as my career progressed. But hopefully this gives you some idea of how you can get started with your own personal journey and understand that saving this much money is something that is attainable by most everybody, as long as the habits and the lifestyle choices are aligned. So let's get into it. So first things first, I think it's important to discuss where I started and kind of understand the resources that were available to me at the time. And then we can kind of get into where I started saving and how I started doing it, right? So when I first graduated college, I got a sales job, and this was as a third-party medical device recruiter. Now, if any of you know sales jobs, they're typically not with a very high base salary, but they do have a commission component to it, where when you make sales or when you make placements, as it pertains to the job recruiting world, you get bonus checks. Now, that being said, they were not frequent, and when you got them, it was nice. So when I first started the job, I kind of had this mentality of like, hey, this is my first real job. I'm going to be spending money. I'm going to be enjoying myself. I'm going to do whatever I want to do at the time, right? And at the time I had a 1-bedroom apartment. I believe I was paying about $14.95 in rent, which at the time was a good price relative to now here in the Bay Area. So aside from that, I was paying into groceries. I was getting, electricity bills, things like that, right? So run-of-the-mill stuff. After that, and once I started, going out to eat, I didn't really have a whole lot left, right? So basically, I had to think about it like, okay, where's my savings going to come from? I deemed that it was probably going to be coming from the commission checks, right? So when I got my first commission check, I was like, okay, sweet, this is awesome. Let me save some of this and enjoy the rest, right? So here and there, I would put away a little bit of money, but it was by no means anything to write home about, right? After working there for about a year, I started to realize, okay, I've enjoyed myself. Now it's time to get, just really dial in, get it serious, right? So I had my first goal, right? And here's honestly the biggest part about saving money is start small, but be consistent. Set yourself a goal and meet that goal and meet it regularly. And once you meet that goal regularly, you start increasing. And I'll talk about how I mentally increased my savings goals to make it seem like a little bit more of a game, more fun to me. But my first goal was to max out my Roth IRA. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Roth IRA is an investment vehicle that you can put money into that saves for retirement. The Roth IRA is touted as one of the best financial accounts because any gain that you get in the account grows tax-free, assuming that you follow all the rules that come with having a Roth IRA, right? This isn't a video about Roth IRAs, but in short, as long as you wait till your initial contributions have been in there for at least 5 years and you're over the age of 59 and a half, you can take your money out tax-free and penalty-free, right? There are some cases where you can take it out otherwise, but we won't get into that here. So at the time, my limit for putting into this Roth IRA was $6,000 per year, right? My first goal in my financial saving life was to hit that cap, right? And unfortunately, I failed. I was not able to save the $6,000 per year between how much money I actually had left at the end of every paycheck, only making $40,000 base, and all of my regular bills and costs. I really couldn't save that much. So whatever I did save was a result of a bonus check. So I believe my first year, off of one bonus check, I was able to save I think $3,500 or something like that, which, isn't small, but it definitely wasn't anything to write home about. So fast forward a little bit, I ended up landing my next job, where right there I was making right around, I think it was about 60,000-ish. So definitely a huge jump in the amount of money that I had on a month-to-month basis. I didn't get any commission checks anymore, but I got to have a little bit more consistency around each paycheck that I was getting, so I had a little bit more ability to plan. And this was fantastic. This was hands down the breakthrough that I needed, because I personally didn't have the self-control to go through and not blow a bonus check, right, at the time. So now the goal was still to max my Roth IRA, and I hit it. And it was a great feeling. I remember the first year that I ever maxed my Roth IRA, I was so excited. And the way I did it, because I don't have the commission check anymore, is I broke it out into every single paycheck, right? So I said to myself, okay, Sean, it's January. You have until December to do this, right? So you have $6,000 that you need to save in 12 months, right? So you divide the 600 by 12, and then, you divide the 6,000 by 12, and you get about $500 a month, or $250 every paycheck if you're paid on a bi-weekly basis. So by doing that, I was able to kind of really break down how much I needed to save at the end and break it out across all of my paychecks, right? Instead of trying and save in one lump sum with a commission check. And this was huge, right? So after my first year, I saved, obviously the $6,000. And I also was making sure that during this time I was matching or I was putting into my company's 401k, which again, small side note, a 401k is a retirement account that you have through your company, right? So when you work for somebody, they will offer a retirement plan called a 401k, or if you're a government worker, 403b, the list goes on, right? And a lot of these companies, what they'll do is they'll say, hey, if you put in X dollar, we will put in our own money into your retirement account so we can help incentivize you to save, right? Mechanically, there's a lot of incentivization for companies to do that, but the thing you need to know is this is free money for you, right? So I had a fantastic matching program where if I put away 6% of my salary, they would pay me another 6% in my retirement account, right? So it was a 1-for-1 match up to 6%. And this is fantastic. This is the only investment you'll ever make in your life that has a 100% return the day you put it in, assuming that you vest immediately, right? But it's a fantastic investment, right? So along with doing 6% of my base salary, I also maxed out my Roth, which mathematically adds up to what? It's like 3 and change plus another 6. So I was able to save right around $9,000 at the time, right? Which, if you're doing the math behind my pay increase, was pretty much all of the finance that I gained from the bump in pay. So this marks a very important lesson, right? And this is something that if you're watching this video very early on in your career is going to be very beneficial. If you're watching this a little bit later on, still helpful, but a little bit less beneficial, right? And that's this idea of don't let your lifestyle jump the second you get a pay increase, right? You have to look at this pay increase as a means by which you can get extra resource to help save for whatever goals that you may have, right? And I would say the other idea is like, get this idea out of your head that you need to save for a goal and that's it, right? You can just save to save, right? You don't have to spend every dollar that you earn outside of what you're saving for retirement or saving for a trip somewhere, right? Just save to save, right? And that was my mentality. So now we're in year 2 of my new job, right? I've maxed the Roth for the first year successfully, and I was always hitting my contribution match, right? So now where do I go from here, right? Well, I got a slight pay increase. I think I got like a pay increase of like $5,000 a year. So I was like, great, how can I leverage this? So then I was maxing out my Roth at the time, and I thought to myself, okay, how much is this per paycheck, right? $250. What if I just save $300 per paycheck, right? Just an extra $50. Because if I do this, then over the course of 1 month, I'm saving an extra $100. But if you multiply that out by 12 for 12 months in a year, I'm saving an extra $1,200, right? So a $50 sacrifice every paycheck seems very doable to me. I'm gonna try it, right? And I went through, and instead of saving $250 into my Roth, I saved $250 into the Roth, and I saved $50 in a little investment account that I had at Charles Schwab. And this trend continued. And I found that it was actually very doable, right? I wasn't really missing the extra $50. It just meant that I went out 1 night or 2 nights less per 2-week period than I would normally, right? Go out in the Bay Area, it's like $30 and then you pay tip and then you're pretty much at 50, right? So I just don't go out one meal. That's it. That's all it takes for me to save an extra $1,200 a year. That's massive, right? Well worth the sacrifice in my mind. So I started doing that and I realized, wow, this is easy, right? I just ended up cooking at home a little bit more and just went out a little bit less, right? Super easy, super doable. And then my next challenge came and I was like, okay, well now I'm doing 300, right? This is easy. What if I did just like 325, right? Another $25, right? Half of a meal going out to eat per paycheck. See where it goes. And slowly over time, I kept trying to challenge myself of like, okay, I'm saving an extra 50 here, an extra 50 there, an extra 25, here, right? And slowly over time, when you multiply it out by 12 months, this really starts to add up, right? Now, if you're doing the math on that, right, I was saving an extra $50 per paycheck. Now I did an extra 25, so that's 75 per paycheck. Call it 150 per month. 12, 6, so that's what, 1,800? Excuse my math if I'm wrong, but I mean, shoot, I'm almost to 2,000 at this point, right? So this is kind of how I continued the trend. And I did this for the next, I would say 5 years, where I just continually tried to challenge myself and save an extra 25, an extra 50 per paycheck, an extra 100 per paycheck, see if I could do it, right? And over time, what I found myself doing was I hit a certain point where my habits were now dictated by my goal setting with retirement and not the other way around, right? A lot of people, when they have income, they base their savings off of their lifestyle, right? Rather than basing their lifestyle off of their saving desire, right? And that's a very minute difference, but very important difference, right? So now I was starting to pick up habits that brought me joy within my budget, right? I didn't really enjoy going out to eat a whole lot, right? Especially to expensive restaurants. So now I'm like, okay, what do I want to choose, right? If I want to go out to eat to like nicer sit down restaurants, the opportunity cost is $1,200 a year. Is that worth it to me? A lot of times the answer was no. So then I just don't go to fancy restaurants, right? And I started picking up hobbies that were relatively cheap, right? I've always been an athlete, but working out was a way for me to feel good about my body for very cheap per month. And ultimately it took my free time away from me, right? And that's important because for me personally, idle hands are the devil's playground, right? If I have spare time, I'm going to want to do things. And when I want to do things, it often leads to me spending money, right? So I started picking up hobbies that chewed up a lot of my free time, right? Started, maintaining my exercise program. I started playing video games a lot, right? And video games are insanely cheap, right? Assuming that you don't get hooked into like the gacha system and you're buying skins and all that. But I mean, you can pay once for a video game and enjoy it for hundreds of hours with your friends, and you don't have to go out, you don't have to do anything, you just stay at home and you just chill, right? And you're having a fantastic time. So again, my lifestyle started to be dictated by the amount that I was saving, right? And I told myself, if at any point you get unhappy, stop, right? Because you also need to protect your ability to go to work and make money, right? Because if I am just suffering saving this much money, then I'm not setting myself up to do the best that I can at my career and ultimately progress myself to higher and higher pay grades, right? So that was always my rule with myself is, just do it to the point where I feel comfortable, but push myself where I could possibly, right? You don't want to just live a whole life of comfort. You want to be able to kind of push yourself. Okay, can I make that extra meal per night or can I not, right? And genuinely try. And if you fail, you fail, right? But just try. So that's kind of like the mindset that started to form. And then I would say once I started hitting really big numbers, I stopped thinking about dollars and I started thinking more about percentages and calculating it that way. So I believe by year 3, I was saving about 20% of my annual salary per month, right? Or I'm sorry, per month, per year, right? I was saving 20% of my salary, which is very good, especially at the age that I was at, right? So then I started thinking, okay, well, how can I bring this to 22%? How can I bring this to 25%? And, the trend kind of continued where I'm consistently challenging myself to save more and more and more as I got more pay increases, right? Until eventually, once I started my new job, I received a significant pay increase. again, with a lot more responsibility, but I got a huge pay increase. And I'm sure you can guess what happened based on, trends prior. I saved a majority of it. And I really have not adjusted my lifestyle up, but I have enjoyed saving extra because of this job increase, right? So I've been consistently saving, but I've also consistently been investing in myself, learning different skill sets, improving at my job, and then making sure I don't adjust my lifestyle to my salary, but instead I adjust my saving to my lifestyle, right? That was massively important. And then just this past year, it was funny. I didn't even realize that, for those of you aware, there's something called the FIRE movement, which is the financial independence, retire early, where people are saving ludicrous amounts of money. I mean, like 50% of their income, right? And I thought, what kind of freak would do that? That's nuts, right? Like, mathematically speaking, you couldn't do FIRE until you hit a certain income level within the Bay Area, right? And then one day I always thought about things in terms of gross income, not net income, right? So gross is just before taxes are taken out and net is after taxes are taken out. So I was always saving right around like 30 to 35% gross. And one day I did the math and I was like, dude, holy shit. I'm like almost at 50% of my income. And I didn't even realize it, but shoot, I was like a member of the FIRE movement, right? So really over time, it just started to kind of just fall in place, And I'll end this video with a quote that I heard once. Obviously, I'm going to paraphrase this here, but it goes, the first million is difficult, but the second million is inevitable. And it goes into saying that more than actually accruing $1 million, right, is the person that you become when you first get your first million, right? You have to develop habits. You have to develop lifestyle. You have to develop character. You will have personal development greater than 99% of the population, right? And those people tend to beget the next million, right? And after hearing that, I couldn't agree more, right? As my story kind of helps illustrate, more income will come as you level up your skill sets, as you increase your value to the economy, your value to your employer. But it is your character, it is your habits, it is your desire to actually do what it is that you're probably watching this video for, to amass some kind of financial asset and retire, right? Based on all of those things together, you either will or will not save, and the degree to which is really up to you, right? But the hardest thing is just starting, right? Just start. It doesn't matter how much you start with. Start with something small, $50 a month. It doesn't matter, right? It's the act of starting and it's the act of just doing it. And then over time, once that becomes comfortable, you push yourself just a little bit harder and a little bit harder. And before you know it, you're going to be saving 50% of your income and you're going to be saving well over $40,000 a year. And honestly, it was a very cool realization that I save now more than I made on my base salary on my first job. And that's massive. It's something I'm very proud of. And I hope that someday one of you all can watch this, learn from this, and hopefully do the same. So without anything else to say, hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, morning, day, whatever it is for you.